Are you getting frustrated with what to feed a teenager who's always hungry? Everybody knows that teenagers have a huge appetite. It seems like you need to feed them constantly to satisfy their hunger. It's even more difficult where teenagers who struggle with their weight truly want to make changes, like cut down on junk food or stop overeating, and they can't. There's frustration, isolation, stress, and that's why I decided to create a recipe collection of 30 easy and healthy meals for teenagers. They're all high in protein to satisfy your teenager's hunger, and they can all be ready in less than 30 minutes. If you want to grab a free copy, go to lifestyleforteens.com/recipes. Are you getting frustrated with what to feed a teenager who's always hungry? Everybody knows that teenagers have a huge appetite. It seems like you need to feed them constantly to satisfy their hunger. It's even more difficult where teenagers who struggle with their weight truly want to make changes, like cut down on junk food or stop overeating, and they can't. There's frustration, isolation, stress, and that's why I decided to create a recipe collection of 30 easy and healthy meals for teenagers. They're all high in protein to satisfy your teenager's hunger, and they can all be ready in less than 30 minutes. If you want to grab a free copy, go to lifestyleforteens.com/recipes.
This is the Lifestyle and Weight Loss for Teens podcast. If you're a mom and want to help your child who is struggling to lose weight, you are in the right place. If you are looking for healthy lifestyle tips, Dr. Gorgery is here to help you understand the science around safe weight loss in teens and children. Because what works for adult weight loss is not always the best for children. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Dr. Gorgery does not provide medical, psychological, or nutrition therapy advice. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat any health problems without consulting your own medical practitioner. And now, your host, Dr. Jenny Gorgery.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle and Weight Loss for Teens podcast. I hope you all had a wonderful week and you're ready for another topic. This week, I decided to talk about a sensitive topic, which is weight teasing. It is often something that we encounter as parents. We hear it from our kids, but we also hear it in our houses. Uncles, aunts, grandparents, parents, moms, friends, cousins, students, teachers. It's everywhere. So sometimes there is like funny teasing, sometimes it's more serious teasing, and not all teenagers respond to the weight-based teasing in the same way. However, the teasing, even if it is funny, may not necessarily have no effects, right? It can actually have some effects, and people don't always express their feelings after they have been teased. So there was a very interesting study was conducted a few years ago. The topic of this manuscript that I'm going to present is association of weight-based teasing and emotional well-being among adolescents. And really what the researchers tried to analyze in this is they wanted to find out what's the association between the weight-based teasing and body dissatisfaction, self-esteem, depression, and even suicidal ideation among adolescents. So in order to answer this question, what did the researchers do? They sent surveys to children that they were attending the 7th to 10th grade in different schools in the Minnesota area. This project was actually a small subset of a bigger project, which was the Project EAT, Eating Among Teens, which really examined 221 item survey and examined all different parameters. So a subset of this survey, and which is what we are going to focus on this podcast, was really looking at the association between body weight teasing. So basically, they asked 2 questions. Have you ever been teased or made fun of by other kids or family members because of your weight? And possible responses were yes or no. And they analyzed separately the teasing from kids and friends, so teasing from peers, and teasing from their parents. Now, what they wanted to look is they wanted to examine whether the weight-based teasing had an association with parameters of the body satisfaction. So they used a validated scale where teenagers rated their satisfaction on 10 different body parts and whether they like it or not like it. And based on the score that every teenager gave, then they assessed their percentage of their body satisfaction. Then they also examined their self-esteem. And again, they used another validated scientific scale. And for example, some teenagers would say that I certainly feel useless at times, or on the whole, I am satisfied with myself, and things like that. So they also gave them a certain number after its scale so they could assess how their self-esteem rated. They also looked at their depressive mood. So again, they used another scale and they asked them, are they feeling happy, sad, depressed, and how often do they have those feelings? And they could, again, give for every teenager a score based on this scale. They even asked questions that had to do with suicidal thoughts. Like, for example, have you thought about killing yourself? And did you have any thoughts than last year or more than a year ago? And things like that. Apart from that, they also collected data that had to do with their ethnicity background. So they wanted to see whether they had a good representative sample from different racial backgrounds. So they collected data on their race. They also collected data on their body mass index. So they used height and weight and gender and age to calculate that. So they wanted to see whether that was effect of the body mass index. And they also, of course, collected data on sex and age. And then they analyzed the data and they tried to find that whether there was any relationship between the weight-based teasing from peers, from friends, and all these different parameters, and the weight-based teasing from family and all those different parameters. So let's see what the researchers found. So the total sample of the participants in this cohort were 4,746 students, which included 2,357 adolescent girls and 2,377 adolescent boys. So it was a huge sample size. And remember, the bigger the sample, the bigger the population you have, the stronger the results and the more reliable are the results that you're going to get because you ask many more people. They also have a very good representation in terms of their racial background. They were approximately 48.5% were white, 19% Black, 6% Hispanic, 19% Asian. And in terms of their weight status, 5% of the kids were underweight, 63% were normal weight, 17% were overweight, and 15% were in the obese category. So again, they had a good representation from kids from different body size. So in general, The kids that had low body satisfaction were 27.3% of this particular sample. 21% had low self-esteem. 28% had high depressive symptoms. 25% expressed suicidal thoughts, and 9% had suicidal attempts. Quite scary data, don't you think so? I mean, 25% had previous suicidal thoughts, and almost a third were not satisfied with their body, and 20% almost had low self-esteem, and a third were depressed. Really very concerning data. And again, this was a good representative sample. Of course, it's not representative of what's going on in the whole United States or what's going on in the whole world, but it kind of gives you a signal, and it kind of makes you pause and think about it, because the likelihood of having a teenager that express those feelings is actually pretty good. It's not rare, right? Yes, it may not be the most common scenario, but it does happen. Okay, so next, the researchers really compared the percentages of the low body satisfaction, low self-esteem, depression, and suicidal thoughts between the group of teenagers that had no teasing with a group of teens that had teasing by their peers only, with a group of teenagers that had teasing by their family only, and then with a group of teenagers that they had teasing by both their family and by their friends. And they also separated the data between girls and boys, and they look at this separately. And the actual numbers, you can probably go in the actual manuscript and find it, but I'm going to give you the take-home messages here. First, of course, we know that even if there is no teasing, the percentage of teenagers that had low body satisfaction was 24%. 16% had low self-esteem. 30% had high depressive symptoms. And 9% had suicidal attempt, and 25% had suicidal thoughts. So what that tells us is, of course, that teasing is not the source of all these problems. Like, teenagers can have low body dissatisfaction, low self-esteem, depression, and suicidal thoughts, and not experience any teasing. We all know that, or we suspected that. However, what is really evident in this study is that when there is teasing by peers or when there is teasing by family members, this percentage is higher. And the numbers I just gave you is for simplicity for adolescent girls. And I can give you also the numbers for adolescent boys. But if we just continue the numbers for adolescent girls, overall, the low body satisfaction rate in adolescent girls that had teasing by their peers was 42%. If there was family only was 44%. And if there were teasing by peers and family, that was 48%. And compared to the no teasing at all group, it was almost double the amount. Similar results for the depression symptoms, like 30% in the no teasing category. But if there was teasing by peers, the depression was 40%, teasing by family was 49%, and if there was teasing by both friends and family, depressive symptoms were 55%. And scary enough, the suicidal attempts and suicidal thoughts were 25% approximately suicidal thoughts on the no teasing group. And if there was teasing by peers and family, that percentage rose to 51%. So almost half of the teenagers that were teased by parents and friends had double the suicidal thoughts compared to the group that experienced no teasing. Again, similar results were seen for adolescent boys. In general, 10% had low body image satisfaction in the group that had no teasing, and the group that was teased by friends and family, that rose to 36%. Approximately 9% had low self-esteem in the no teasing group, and that rose to 19% in the group of boys that were teased by both friends and family. Depression symptoms were 16% in the no teasing group of boys and rose to 42%, more than double, in the group of teenagers that were teased for their weight by both peers and family. And they had suicidal thoughts was around 14% in the group that had no teasing to report, and that rose to 34%, again, more than double, in the group of boys that they were teased by both peers and families. So in general, very concerning data indicating that the weight-based teasing is not something to take lightly. It does have, and it can have, significant effects in the quality of life and the way the teenagers think about it. So with this in mind, I would like to close this episode, and I encourage you to think about instances that your friends, your relatives have made these comments, and reconsider them so that we try to limit the weight-based teasing as much as possible. Take care of you all. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, I invite you to come check out the LIFT program. It's Dr. Gorgory's 12-week coaching program for teens and their moms, where we take all this information, we apply it to your daily life, and we work together so your teenager learns how to create a healthy lifestyle so they can feel happier, more confident, less stressed, and love their body again. Visit the website at lifestyleforteens.com and click on the Work With Me and free resources to learn more about this program and get free help to start this journey right away. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Lifestyle and Weight Loss for Teens.